come out. And tonight's presentation is just a little sneak peek of what I'll be covering. So these are our 6 questions tonight. And again, these were submitted. I got a big list of possible topics, and I chose 6 of them to just cover very briefly because I think they're the most relevant. Question number 1, how important is fluent English in interactions with Western clients? Number 2, what are the main mistakes Ukrainians make on first contact meetings? Number 3, individual approaches when dealing with various cultures. How to create understanding with anyone. 4, what are a typical USA client's expectations? 5, what are the ways to generate right leads in the USA? And 6, what fears and objections exist and how to deal with them? So let's move on to the first one. How important is fluent English in interactions with Western clients? And I hear a lot of people, particularly in Ukraine, I think that that's because there's a culture of being open and honest and forthright about something that you perceive as lacking. I hear a lot of people ask me about this, or maybe they get self-conscious about their language skills. Interestingly enough, even though Ukrainian teams are some of the world's highest quality software development teams, I don't really get this question from other regions, specifically from countries in South Asia and East Asia. This is part 1 of why it's so great to work with Ukrainians, is because you won't say, yes, yes, I can do it, yes, yes, everything is fine, when it's not fine. If you feel like there's something that needs to be fixed, you say it, and I like that. But regarding this question in particular, I don't think you really have as much to worry about as you might think that you do. Obviously we have to be able to communicate. If you gave me a project in Russian today, I would be useless. I can't even read half of the letters. It's terrible, right? But as long as we have enough of a common language to really make the client feel understood in a business context, it's okay. You need to keep in mind, Americans, they're also used to working and living with people who aren't native English speakers. My mother is one. When my mother talks, she speaks like this. And she don't not pronounce the words correctly, and sometimes she makes the grammatical error. But my mother is still very, very successful, okay? So, you don't have to speak perfectly, you just have to be understood. And more importantly than that, you have to make sure that the other person feels understood. And the second point is relating to feeling understood. And this is something I see on a lot of teams around the world. It's not particular to Ukraine, but I do want to bring it up. Being understood isn't just about lead generation and closing the sale. This is one point where your teams can go above and beyond. If your developers also have a good level of English and you include them on the sales process, even from the beginning of lead nurturing, when you're doing an introductory call or when you're developing project requirements, it's much less likely that things will get lost in translation. And also the client, again, will have this psychological impression that they are understood because the people who are going to be working on their project are hearing the words that come out of their mouth. And they're working together with them to develop a project requirement. Again, I go more into detail in this in the workshop. I don't have 2 hours to talk about this, but you do need to have decent English. You don't need to feel bad about it as a handicap. That's my first question. You can solve this if you still feel like it's an issue. And it's going to sound strange, but it's really just as simple as maybe 5 to 10 minutes a day. This is the same way that I have learned French and Italian. After about like a year or so of doing these tips, I'm at the point where I can have a conversation in French with someone who comes into a retail store. I can't debate philosophy, politics, or religion, but I can talk about what do you want to buy? What are you looking for? What are the materials? What are the dimensions? Where are you staying? How can I help you? For a business context, I have business French. I've done the same thing. First of all, when I'm dealing with another language in a business context, I keep it business professional and I avoid jargon. Jargon is one of the hardest things to master in a language. Jargon and humor, really, are probably the last two things that you'll ever master when you're learning a language. And it's one of the hardest because it's extremely unclear and very contextual. I'm from the United States and I don't even know what it means to synergize the proposal so that we're in the ballpark toward winning. What is that? I don't know. And I'm a native English speaker. So avoid jargon, try not to use it. And as an ultimate, last resort, you can ask, very professionally, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that turn of phrase. Can you tell me what you mean? And that's fine. It really is okay. Secondly, when you're writing communications, because so much of the initial sales contact is written, I recommend you always use style and grammar editors in written communications. These are free tools that you can get online that automatically correct whatever you're saying or doing. Does anyone here know or use Grammarly? Yeah? Yeah, Grammarly is a good start. What about Hemingway? Hemingway, you use it? Anyone else use Hemingway? So what Grammarly does is it corrects like basic grammatical errors, right? The cat and the dog eats the ball, right? That's wrong. Grammarly will catch that. What Grammarly won't catch is the cat and the dog eats the ball, and then we went to the park and I found 5 doves and I want to have your project and can I please have your project? Hemingway will tell you this sentence is run on. Hemingway will tell you this word doesn't really fit this context. Hemingway will tell you maybe you should break this up, or it will tell you maybe there's a clearer way to express what you're saying. It's kind of like Grammarly up one level. So I recommend that. And finally, keep reading and listening. This is where I talk about, like 5 or 10 minutes a day. Since you're not based in an English-speaking country, but you do want to improve those skills, try downloading podcasts, watching videos on YouTube without the subtitles. Listening or watching to movies. Again, you can use subtitles, but not dubbed. It's a very gradual process, but if you want to start doing something now, watch Amy Schumer on Comedy Central. 2.5 minutes, you'll laugh, and you'll start listening to English as it's spoken naturally by an English speaker. That's really the only way to improve. And finally, you guys should be proud of your English-speaking skills. I know they're not perfect. You're not native English speakers. Of course they're not going to be perfect. My fiancé is also not a native English speaker. But I'm not a native Turkish speaker, so my Turkish is crap. But we work it out. I mean, compared to other outsourcing regions around the world, Ukrainian English is pretty good. Again, you can always improve. Everyone can. But it's not like Ukrainian teams are down here at the bottom of the barrel. In fact, Ukrainian teams are known for being quality. You're highly educated as well relative to other regions. If I look at the degrees I see on a lot of team profiles, there are some cases in which you might actually have more masters and PhDs than on the client side. So you're smart and you can learn this. I get often a sense of despair about language skills, and you don't need to have it. And finally, most Americans can only speak one language fluently. You guys have Ukrainian, Russian, and some English, and maybe something else too. So you're bilingual, if not trilingual. There's nothing to feel unconfident about here. Our second question. Main mistakes Ukrainians make on first contact meetings. Talking about practice, right? Watching videos or listening to English. I want everyone tonight to go to YouTube and Google Mad TV, can I have your number? You see what's going on here? Excuse me, can I talk to you for a minute? Look at her face. This is a sketch. It's actually really funny, and I'm sure it's happened to at least half of the people in this room. You're sitting in public, right? And there's this guy who maybe he looks at you, and he looks at you a little bit more and says, "Hey, what's your name? Do you have a name? Can I get your name?"
My name is Ksenia.
Ksenia, wow, that's a really Ukrainian name. Wow. So, Ksenia, listen, can I have your number? Can I have it? 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 Oh, why? What, you have a boyfriend? Oh, you have a boyfriend. You have a boyfriend. Okay, yeah, you have those beautiful Ukrainian names. You have a boyfriend. Yeah, okay. So, listen, can I have your number? And this, I'm a little bit like over the top here, but you really should see this sketch because this is probably one of the number one mistakes that I see teams meeting. I call it the can I have your number mistake. You focus first on your needs, your profile, your skills, and then you rush to the sale, right? Poor Ksenia, thank you by the way. But first thing I asked was, what's your name? Second thing, can I have your number? Oh, you're so beautiful, can I have your number? Can I have your number, right? And that doesn't really work with US teams. In fact, it's time to shift this, I think. And in my workshops, I go more into depth about how to approach your leads from a way that talks about their needs, what they're looking for, and then very gradually transition into how that you can help them. So from the very beginning, you're establishing yourself as their friend, as someone who's going to help them reach their goals. And by the time it's time to start a closing sale technique, by the time you're asking for her number, right? She already says, "Oh, he's my friend, he's going to help me out with my, my chemistry project, or he's, whatever. Yeah, sure, I'll give you my project. I can see your value." Instead of you saying, "Hello, my name is Ksenia from OLX Incorporated. We're the best team in Ukraine. We have 10 years of experience. We want to have your project. Can I have your number? Can I have it?" Right? Now watch this sketch, really. Mad TV, can I have your number? You'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. Number 3, individual approaches when dealing with various cultures. How to create understanding with anyone. And this is really hard because everyone has their own set of ideas or expectations. And I've definitely made a lot of mistakes when meeting people for the first time, right? So I'm not perfect, but these are the general tips I use. First of all, I assume as little as possible. What is natural to you may be strange to the other person, and vice versa. I remember the first time I came to Kiev last year in October, and I had already, trying to prepare, I already read about, Ukrainian and Russian culture, how people are expected to behave, what they do, what they don't do. But nothing really prepared me for going to the check-in desk and saying, "Hello, I'd like to check in, please. Passport." And I said, okay, just stay calm, right? Because I was thinking, what did I do? Like, did I do something wrong? Like, am I bothering her? Like, oh God, like what? It's my first real interaction with a Ukrainian person, and she's already mad at me. On her end, she probably just thought, oh, okay, she was saying the equivalent of, in United States, "Can I have your passport, please?" Only for her, it's natural to say passport. And that's fine. It's just a different culture. Another story, when I moved to Turkey, I had been living in Argentina for 4 years, And Latin cultures are very kissy, kissy, huggy, huggy. Especially as a woman, you greet either a woman or a man with a kiss on the cheek. If you know them, or if they're friends of your family or your significant other, it's a kiss on the cheek and a hug. And to not do that is extremely rude. Even in a business context. So if you go to business meetings all day, you're just kissing everyone. And it sounds very strange. It's going to be even stranger when I go to India and I tell them, and they're, like, men and women do not touch each other, right? So I didn't know that. And I came to Turkey, which is a Muslim country. And even though, I knew that it was a little bit different, the compulsion was just so strong for me to say hi to my boyfriend's friend with a kiss on the cheek and a hug, because he's his best friend from childhood, that he got a really wrong impression about what sort of woman I am. Like, really bad. I'll go into details when I'm not presenting, but assume as little as possible. This is what I should have done. Watch and listen, then do. Okay? If at all possible. And it's harder when you're establishing virtual contacts with people, but you have unlimited free access to cultural videos and resources through the internet. What I should have done is watch how people actually greet each other and then done something similar. If you can anticipate the interaction, learn about their culture first. Again, that's what I just said. If you know it's going to happen, take 5 or 10 minutes and just learn a little bit about what makes these people tick, who they are. Part of why I kept my mouth shut in Kiev, instead of saying, "Excuse me, do you have a problem with me?" was because I had read, okay, things are a little bit more formal. If you don't know someone, you're supposed to be a little bit more distant to show respect, because I anticipated the interaction. I learned about the culture first, and I didn't react the way maybe I would have otherwise. Be flexible without expecting anything in return. That's another important point. If you're going to approach the other person, you just have to be flexible, and you can't get angry when they don't do it in return, because it's like any of life's other common kindnesses. You just have to do it without expecting it and without getting angry if it doesn't happen. The fact that you're willing to make these overtures over time does inspire the other party to do it. When I give these workshops in the United States, it's the same thing to the other side. I'm telling them, okay, like, this is how ridiculous you are. This is where you make wrong steps when you're dealing with these other cultures. Just because everything is focusing on Ukrainians, disclaimer, doesn't mean that you guys do everything wrong. It's just, it makes no sense to tell you how Americans need to change their patterns of conduct. And finally, be open to sharing your own perspective in a non-judgmental way. People actually really like learning about other cultures and perceptions. You can say, oh, that's interesting that you would say that. Here maybe we would phrase it in another way. Or, wow, what I really love about working with clients from your country is that you tend to expect this, this, and this. For us, if I was dealing with a Ukrainian firm, it might be different. Very gradually you'll wind up opening their minds and getting them to realize as well that it's not just you who has to accommodate them. Finally, number 4, actually not finally, number 4, moving on, USA clients' expectations. I'll go more into detail in my workshop, but as just a brief overview, I think it is fair to say that we are spoiled and demanding. And this is something I've heard from Ukrainian developers directly. When I was preparing for these workshops, I surveyed United States entrepreneurs, business people who have worked with Ukrainian teams, who maybe thought about it but decided not to. And I've also surveyed Ukrainian teams who came to me with legitimate praises and complaints about USA clients. We are spoiled and demanding. We're kind of like this. And I'm not going to lie, it's true. This is what I've heard. USA clients expect you to be available and working 24/7. Again, if you agree with this, if you think it's wrong, you can tell me. I don't take it personally. It doesn't really matter to me. Money, money, money. This is what Ukrainian developers say about USA clients. Don't know what they want. That's interesting. What could that be coming from? They expect the very best. they're just like anyone else. And I thought this last point was really interesting because even though our cultures give us different frames of reference, it's not like Ukrainians expect crap. You know, like if you were expecting something good and you went to go and buy it and it didn't meet your expectations, you would say something and you would be disappointed. You know, everyone doesn't know what they want sometimes. I'm pretty sure money matters to everyone. Until there's a different way to pay your rent and buy your food, I don't know what it would be. USA clients expect you to be available and working 24/7. Well, if you placed the fate of your business in the hands of another team, maybe you would be a little bit anxious about it too. What fears and objections exist from these USA clients and how to deal with them? This relates to number 4, right? What are our expectations and what are the fears and objections that exist? All of those points that I listed are correct in the sense that you are perceiving something that does exist on the other side, but you have the glasses of your own culture to perceive it, right? So they are correct. They do come from small seeds of culture that impact how they communicate with you, which impacts how you communicate with them, and over time this can derail and ruin projects. Or if you manage to play the game right, it can lead to more projects, bigger projects, and a better public profile. What are the fears and objections that exist? Will my ideas get stolen or sold to someone else? This is a big fear, and it comes from that same factor of USA clients expect you to be working and available 24/7. When I can tell you as a business owner myself, my business is my baby, and I care about it more than just as a source of income. It's something that I'm building. Something that I'm building for myself, but also something that I'm doing because I think I have something valuable to offer. So if I'm working to create this valuable thing and it gets stolen or sold, it would be like my baby gets stolen or sold on the black market, in a sense. Will I be able to communicate effectively with my team? Miss, please tell me something, say something to me in Ukrainian.
Здравствуйте, как вас зовут?
It's Russian.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I couldn't even tell the difference, right? And this is a problem, right? If we don't have a language or enough of a language in common, there's no way to communicate effectively with people. Also, Americans are a little bit spoiled in this aspect, and I'll tell you why in my workshops, but historically, people who moved there were expected to learn English. So they're not really used to dealing with, how to communicate if someone doesn't have a 100% complete vocabulary. It happens, they deal with it, but there's still this perception of, oh, they're in another country, how do I speak to them? Does instability pose a threat to my project? This comes from a perception that somehow other regions in the world are less safe than the United States, when in fact we have one of the highest rates of gun violence in the world. But certain things make it to the headlines and other things don't, and so there's this very strange perception that other regions that are unstable might pose a threat to my project. Will they deliver on time? I talk about this as well. Time is a big concern. For us, time flows differently. If I think about how time flows in Argentina, it's the present moment that goes out into this very diffuse future realm of things that may or may not happen, and just because at this moment in time I say yes, it will happen, it just means that it's my intent that if everything goes well in the future it might happen, but between now and then a million other things might happen. Who knows? For us, time flows kind of like the lines in this floor, and it flows regularly, and it doesn't stop just because I'm talking. It doesn't stop just because we're having a nice cup of tea. It keeps on going. And just like that table is right there, so are my goals and time and deadlines there at the future moment that I anticipated they would be. So it's a big concern. Will they deliver on time? Am I going to be able to count on this thing to happen so that I can build other future events around this process? And then finally, there are rookie fears. These relate to people who have never worked with a remote software development team before. Can I trust them to do the job right? Will they take my money and not deliver the project? Is it going to be quality work? How do I oversee the process? This is kind of a rookie set of concerns, and it applies to teams all over the world, not just to Ukraine, but is something to keep in mind. And finally, the last question, ways to generate right leads in the USA. And I know I'm going over this very quickly, but it's because I also want to leave time for questions. Ways to generate the right leads in the USA. Question number 6, number 5 and number 6 are actually answers to each other. And that's because we've seen a huge change in buying and sales, especially within the last 5 to 10 years in the United States. Before we had all of these content-rich portals, which everyone knows about, information was scarce. There were few portals like TV and magazines. People would rely on sellers to bring them whatever they recommended. And so this is why a hard sell approach, this is a hard sell worked, this is why cold calling worked, right? And nowadays, we have a world of information abundance where buyers have the purchasing power because they prefer to investigate you first before you contact them. And even if they do get contacted by you first, they're not interested in the hard sell approach because they have so much content from everywhere and so many different brands competing for their attention. That also plays into the US client's expectation that the other party will go above and beyond because we're used to having a lot of competition for a long time. And so it's more content, many pieces of content lead to a very individualized buyer funnel in the end. Marketing then and now has changed as a result. We used to think about representing the company and going out and finding customers. Now we need to represent the customer and think about how I can be found. You're wondering how this relates to question number 5 and 6, right? What does this have to do with all of those lists of fears and objections and concerns and needs? Bear with me. In terms of finding the right customers, we used to think about mass advertising, right? So nowadays, these are the people who think that I can copy-paste the same message on LinkedIn, send it to 500 people, just change the name in the company, and somehow I'll get great leads. And you're laughing, but people do this. Maybe you in particular don't, but I get these all the time, and I get them from teams everywhere. And you think about a demographic, right? Okay, my demographic is white male entrepreneurs in the United States. That's wrong. Now we need to think about targeting people one-to-one, and what that requires is really thinking very clearly and carefully about what is their behavior, who are these people, how can I make my approach a little bit more personal, still scalable, but a little bit more personal so that they feel like I am answering their fears and objections, right? This means that an article or a video that shows your communication skills is much more powerful than a cold email saying, we have over 10 years of experience in our industry and we are excellent communicators. This means that a blog article on intellectual property protections in Ukraine and how the law protects ideas across borders for startups is much more powerful than you saying in a call, don't worry, it'll be fine. And finally, we need to think about this new way of using these objections, using these concerns,